Stalag 13 was a prisoner of war camp. Although Hogan and his men left to do different acts of destruction against the Germans, most of the time they were confined to the walls that surrounded the camp. The men passed the time playing games in the yard and talking, but the days could be long and boring. It was on one of those cold German mornings that Colonel Klink had a visitor. This man was someone that the men had not seen before, and as so they were very anxious to find out who he was. The men went immediately into the barracks and opened up the coffee maker. As the men stood around the coffee pot, they removed the lid. With the lid off, they could listen to anything that was being said in Colonel Klink's office. They were surprised when they heard Colonel Klink genuinely welcome the visitor to his office. "Welcome, Hans. It has been too long since we have seen each other. How is Gretchen and your daughters?" Colonel Klink was asking. "Everyone is fine. The war has them worried. They are always worried about me. But I am a survivor and have been all right," he told the colonel. "Not that you aren't always welcome here, but what brings you to my POW? I haven't seen you but once since the war broke out." Colonel Klink asked the other man. "There is a great battle taking place in Africa right now, and they are in desperate need of tanks and men. I have been asked to go and lead a Panther division. It is a dangerous mission, and something tells me that I might not return. I am asking you to take care of Gretchen and my girls if something should happen to them." Hans told Colonel Klink. "Of course I would do that without asking. You are my sister's son and I will take care of the family," Klink promised. "But what is this battle that you are talking about in Africa?" Hans looked at his uncle and then looked at his shoes. "We are losing the war, uncle. We have not lost the war yet, but there are signs that our men and units are getting weaker. We are having trouble getting supplies, and sometimes our men go without eating. I am told that it is even worse when it comes to certain medicines." "You did not hear it from me," Hans told Klink. The men in the barracks clapped, hearing of the German soldiers' plight. But Hogan motioned for them to be quiet. He wanted to listen in on the whole conversation and see if they could hear something that they could pass to London. Colonel Klink looked at his nephew and said, "We have had problems before and have always found a way to get out of it. Don't count us as a lost cause, not yet. We might win in the African continent and then we can rebuild our forces. Many people from Africa are on our side in this war, I have heard," Klink told his nephew. But he didn't sound convincing, and Hogan and his men knew that Klink was aware that the war was no longer always going their way anymore. "But uncle, I am going into a battle with not enough gas. My tanks take a lot of gas and all of the supply depots are empty almost. My men now have to carry siphoning hoses with them in case they run out of gas. They have to take fuel from other tanks and jeeps, sometimes supply trucks. We wait for the fuel to come, but it either doesn't come or there is less than half the fuel available than we need," Hans was telling Klink. "I know that a fuel depot was destroyed a few miles from here. The people that did it have not been caught. There were officers and dogs in the woods for weeks afterward looking for those responsible. Nothing ever was found though, I was told. That is what is happening here in Germany all the time now. There are spy rings everywhere and you can't trust anyone that you see anymore. Things are not good for us, uncle," Hans told him. "I have to go now, my men will be wondering where I am." "Thank you for your promise." With that, Hans hugged his uncle and left for the African shores. Colonel Hogan and his men disconnected the coffee pot and Hogan smiled. "Kinch, I need you to send out a message to London. Let them know about the fuel situation in Africa. Also let them know that there is another division of tanks on their way there." Kinch acknowledged and placed the radio called. Because of the hidden microphone, once again Hogan and his men had received important information. London was glad for the information and it was back to business as usual at the camp.